Europe House is hosting our event today. We are very grateful to them for that. A very special event today. We have two distinguished speakers. One of them came directly from Kiev, Natalia Vorozhbyt. She's a well-known playwright in Ukraine who works in the genre of documentary drama. And she's not new to London. In fact, her production called The Voices of the Uprising, which was about the revolution on Maidan, was shown in the Royal Court Theatre in London 2 years ago to a great acclaim. And now Natalia is working a lot in the east of Ukraine, on the front line, and in the areas close to the conflict zone. We will talk in a minute about what is she doing right now and what she is doing in London right now. I also would like to introduce Samir Puri, who is a lecturer from the War Studies Department at King's College London. He's also got a PhD from Cambridge, and he's worked in Foreign Office for quite some time, right? And most recently he spent 2 years in the east of Ukraine as a monitor for the OSCE monitoring mission, and has been to Kramatorsk in the east of Ukraine most recently, quite a couple of months ago.
Yeah, just a couple of months ago, yeah.
Yes. And we also have got Alexander Grib, who is director of British Ukrainian Aid, who is helping us with interpreting today, and we'll be talking about the initiative of this organization a little bit later, which is directly linked to the topic of our debate today. So we will have just a very short introduction, and then we will view a film which Natalia brought from Ukraine. I understand this is pretty much a premiere. Has it been shown publicly before?
Цей фільм? Так. Ну, враховуючи, що все-таки ми не весь фільм показуємо, то це не можна вважати прем'єрою.
It's not exactly a premiere of this film because it's part of the whole documentary.
Але, в принципі, в Британії ми не показували. Це правда.
But this film never been screened in Britain, so this is for the first time indeed.
І навіть в Україні прем'єра буде тільки 23 грудня.
And premiere of this film in Ukraine will take place on 23rd of December.
Okay. So we have a privilege of an exclusive preview here today. Yes, so the film is 35 minutes long, and then we will have a discussion on stage afterwards. So going back to Natalia, Natalia is a founder of a theatre of displaced people in Ukraine. I think it's quite a unique theatre because it works with internally displaced people, of which there are 1.7 million in Ukraine. Probably lots of people in London, in the West in general, do not realize this. I just would like to ask her to tell us briefly what is this theatre about and what are the projects that they are working at the moment.
Sorry, could you just speak up, especially when Natalia speaks? Можете чуть погромче, пожалуйста?
Добрий вечір, по-перше.
Good evening.
Дуже рада, що ви прийшли, дуже рада вас бачити.
I'm very happy that you came along.
Ви мені, будь ласка, скажіть, якщо я буду говорити довго, бо я можу дуже довго розповідати про наш театр.
Please tell me to be more brief, because I can talk a lot about our theatre.
2 роки тому я вперше... Як ми з вами будемо? Я буду говорити абзацами, чи як точніше? 2 роки тому я вперше зібралася саме в грудні їхати на схід до України в місто Славянськ, який був недавно звільнений.
I have set out to travel to eastern Ukraine 2 years ago to visit a city called Slavyansk.
Якраз в Київ в той час приїхав мій старий друг ще по моїй юності в Москві, німецький режисер Георг Жено.
At that time I met with my old friend Georg Jeno, a filmmaker from Germany whom I knew with my studies in Moscow.
І він приїхав робити проєкт, і він був під впливом російської пропаганди, і я не знаю, який він хотів проєкт робити, але я його запросила поїхати зі мною на схід.
He was planning to do a film about Ukraine, but I realized that he was heavily influenced by Russian propaganda, so I invited him to come along and join me in my trip to eastern Ukraine.
І Там з усіма з нами сталося багато різного, що змінило взагалі наше ставлення і до війни, і до людей на Сході.
So we lived through many different experiences in eastern Ukraine, and that completely changed our attitudes towards war in eastern Ukraine.
Ми працювали в школі місто Миколаївка, яка була розбомблена під час бойових дій.
We worked in a school in a town called Mykolaiivka, and the school was completely bombed during the armed conflict.
Ми допомагали волонтерам там відновлювати школу.
We were helping local volunteers to renovate that school.
І влаштовували дітям свято Святого Миколая.
And on one occasion we were helping to put up St. Nicholas celebration.
В школі нас сприймали досить негативно на початку.
Initially, local attitude was rather negative towards us.
Але, звісно, потім ми з дітьми зблизилися і ми зрозуміли, що ми не можемо так просто один раз приїхати, допомогти, зробити якусь подію і поїхати назавжди. І тому ми запропонували дітям зробити з ними виставу.
Gradually, our relationship with local children improved, and then we realized that we can't just help a little bit and leave forever. So we offered them to organize a play together with kids.
Ми почали протягом півроку, ми їздили регулярно в це містечко, займалися з дітьми і в результаті поставили виставу, прем'єра якої відбулася саме в цій школі спочатку, а потім ми її возили у Львів, Київ, в Німеччину, ще кудись, я зараз вже...
So the following 6 months we visited that town on a regular basis, and at the end of it we organized a play that premiered in that local school, but then later we took it on a road show to a couple of towns like Lviv, Kiev, and also abroad, like in Germany.
Чим особливість цієї вистави? Тим, що це 13 монологів дітей, які самі розповідають зі сцени свої історії.
What is interesting about this play that it includes 13 monologues from children who tell their stories in their own words.
Вони самі і актори, і автори вистави.
So effectively those kids offered the text and they play in the show as well.
Скільки така вистава не може існувати довго, тому що діти швидко ростуть і вже вони не діти, а вже навчаються в інститутах, то ми зробили кіноверсію, частину якої ви сьогодні зможете подивитися.
And later on, those children graduated from the school, they went on to study higher education, and we decided to make a feature film that you can have a look at now.
Це став перший проєкт нашого театру переселенця, бо після цього проєкту ми з Георгом вже не змогли розлучитися і вирішили, що ми повинні робити цей театр обов'язково.
So our experience was so profound that we decided with Georg that we will continue activities of this theater.
І далі в нас ще народилось досить багато проєктів, я не знаю, варто їх зараз про них розповідати, чи вже після перегляду.
Після перегляду.
So there are a number of projects, but we can discuss them later after viewing this film.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Samir, and obviously you have seen the issues of IDPs from a slightly different angle, being an OSC monitor there. I know that you've recently completed a research for one of the UK's charities, which is also, at least partially, I think, focusing on IDPs, Ukrainian IDPs issues. What are the key takeaways from this research?
Yeah, I mean, it won't surprise you to know I'm not Ukrainian, so obviously my experience of being involved in the Ukrainian conflict in terms of observing and reporting for the OSCE was very much from the perspective of a neutral observer. But even then, the human tragedy is very palpable, it's very obvious. None of these people asked for war to come to their homes and for shelling to occur either on their homes or in the areas that they live and work. So many people, of course, have been displaced by the conflict in Ukraine. I went to Ukraine for the OSCE just after MH17 was shot down, so late summer 2014. And that time I stayed for 1 full year, and I had many anecdotal experiences with regards to seeing displacement, seeing what happens to people when they're fleeing the conflict. I'll just give you one example, I think, from that time. Many of you will remember a battle for a city called Debaltseve. which took place, or came to a culmination in February 2015. And I used to go on patrol to Displaced with several of my colleagues, and we of course stopped patrolling to Displaced when it became too hazardous, because we weren't peacekeepers, we were just there to observe, so we didn't have weapons. But what I noticed, certainly in places like Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, is of course you then go to the IDP refuge points, I guess, where people are fleeing to, and you see the state people are in when they've left everything. In some cases they've left older relatives, in some cases, of course, as we know, families are divided because the conflict has meant some people flee very quickly. And another reality I noticed is that people who've got more money may be able to just set up their lives again much further west. Of course, those people who don't have any money, or have very little money, don't get to flee very far, and they're in a very difficult position, sometimes being offered train tickets to get to Kiev as a way of maybe starting again. Some people, of course, are very attached to where they're from in the east, and they don't want to take up these offers of going somewhere so far away from where they've grown up, where other family members are. So a lot of suffering, I think, with regards to the Ukrainian conflict. And as Marina mentioned, I went back in September for a British charity called Peaceful Change Initiative. And my job there, I was only there for 1 week back in Donbass, was just to take stock of how things have changed over the course of the 12 months I haven't been in Ukraine. And it's positive in one sense that the war hasn't gotten worse. But it's of course very distressing that the situation has remained more or less exactly as I left it in September 2015. The one thing I did notice that was very different was the sense of frustration has certainly grown, because what was initially a crisis, which some people felt could be resolved maybe very quickly, has of course ended up being something that's going on and on and on. And of course for IDPs, who are of course all around Ukraine, certainly IDPs that I've come into contact with in a small city called Dobrapilya, which I visited on this visit. Of course now the issue is, well, can we get jobs? And what sort of status will we have if we can't go back to where we came from? Are we going to be in this new location for the indefinite future? And therefore issues like schools and jobs become a reality, as well as very practical issues around social security. Maybe they were collecting pensions, maybe they can't access where they were getting the pension from. So I think there are many people who've been affected by the conflict, some very directly, if they live on the front line, but many people have been affected in indirect ways, either because they've had to flee, but also because, of course, the economy has suffered as well. And I think the last thing I'll say before sort of round up these comments is, I certainly didn't get a sense that there's a great deal of tension between IDPs and the communities that they've now moved to live with. The only tension, I can understand this, is that many people in Ukraine are suffering economically. And I think that means when the IDPs have arrived, and of course they're being given some assistance, in some case the EU and other organisations are giving assistance, there's a sense, I think, for some people who aren't IDPs, well, we're also suffering as well. So I think I feel very strongly for Ukraine, having spent a significant amount of time there. And I think some of the ways in which war causes suffering are very indirect and very hard to capture. So I'm very pleased to be here, because I think art is one of the few ways in which you can actually capture emotions. And emotions are, of course, one of the major, I think, things you need to look at and understand to understand the consequences of conflict, unresolved conflict like Ukraine.
Thank you very much for this poignant comment. Just before we proceed to the viewing, the last question, Mykolaiivka. How far is it from the front line?
Ну, зараз вже досить далеко, вважається, що вона в безпеці абсолютно, це кілометрів, мабуть, 70-60 від лінії фронту. Але тоді вона була тільки звільнена, і там була дуже складна ситуація.
At the time when the film was shot, Mykolaiivka was right on the front line, so the situation was quite tense. At the moment it is about 70 kilometers from the front line.
And this was filmed this year or last year?
Коли це знімався?
15-го року, весна 15-го року.
So
Початок літа.
the film was shot beginning of summer 2015.
Я можу, я б хотіла просто подякувати, тут сидять дві чудові дівчини, які абсолютно безкоштовно там допомогли, зробили субтитри для цього фільму. Я хочу подякувати Молі Флін і Олеся Хромойчук. Да, дуже вам дякую, це цінна допомога. І
to thank you to two young ladies who helped to create subtitles for this film, Olesa Хромічук
Молі Флін.
and Molly Flynn.
І нагадати ще раз, що це не весь фільм, а тільки його частина.
Вот, и в 17 лет, ну вот 18, его забрали на войну. То есть мне это сказали уже потом после. Ну вот, и прошло 4 дня, звонит его мама и просто говорит: Катя, его больше нет. Ну, то есть сначала для меня это был шок, я не поверила, говорю, что такого быть не может. Почему вы раньше мне не сказали, что он, как можно, ну, вот, человеку 18 лет только, а он уже, ну, то есть в Донецке, такого даже быть не могло. Оказывается, все это была правда, и
я переживал за всех родных. Потом, когда дали коридор, папа вернулся, и я очень сильно обрадовался. И мы поехали на море. И несмотря на то, что там было хорошо, но я там забывал о проблемах, я помнил о своей собаке и хотел, чтобы она просто была жива, и не надеялся ее встретить, не надеялся.
ребенка. Мама сразу на пол посадила, мы упали, сели на пол. И я тогда увидела, что мама, вот у нее моментально началась истерика. И истерика этот, вот я ее в таком состоянии еще никогда не видела.
Ну, по-перше, ми всі розуміємо, що працювати треба саме з дітьми і підлітками, що з дорослими вже, ну, мабуть, важко працювати, важко щось змінити.
Our first conclusion was that we need to work with children because it's very difficult to change mindset of older people.
Робота наша заключалась в тому, що ми запропонували, ми не знали, про що буде вистава, так завжди відбувається, коли ми починаємо новий проєкт.
We didn't know what the play would be about. That was a new project.
І тому ми запропонували їм принести речі, які для них дуже важливі, які пов'язані з Миколаєм.
So we suggested the children will bring some objects that connect them to the town of Mykolaiv.
І коли вони почали приносити дуже звичайні речі, з них почали виходити такі історії, ну, які ви всі почули насправді.
And children started to bring things that are quite ordinary, but you could see the stories connected to them.
Редакція на якому рівні відбувається? Просто діти можуть, ну, не тільки діти, а в принципі люди розповідають довго, тобто можуть 2-3 години розповідати свої власні історії. Наша задача драматурга, режисера, це таки знайти головне, якісь вибрати 5-10 хвилин з історії і, ну, можливо, розставити якісь акценти, але в принципі ми не вмішуємося в структуру мови абсолютно.
We have done quite a lot of editing because people can talk for hours about the experience, and it's our role as filmmakers to create content that would be easily understood.
Thank you very much. Samir, what is your take on what you have seen?
Well, certainly some of those stories are very familiar to me from people I know and who I met. In a particular, divided families and relationships that were divided by people being forced to take a position with regards to the separatists, the Donetsk People's Republic. Especially in Kramatorsk, where I lived for 6 months. It was obviously occupied for a number of months before the Ukrainian armed forces took it back. So in the residents there and the people I knew, there were some issues in personal family relationships as well as marriages, where one person had taken one side, another person taken another side. So that is something I definitely recognise. I think as well the impact on children. This is 2.5, coming to 3 years now. So there'll be some children for whom this is all they've known. Maybe they're 6 or 7 years old, maybe they're now 9, 10. And so that, I think, is also another really important theme. And something we can talk about later on is, of course, how you deal with some of the consequences psychologically for people who've grown up with this environment, this awful environment around them.
A question to Natalia. There's definitely another layer to this. We could also look at this theatre as a form of therapy. that these teenagers, also adults who are involved into your productions, they talk through their traumas. Was it the aim from the start, or it just became obvious in the process? And what were your observations? How do they achieve healing through this?
Ну, це мій перший був подібний проєкт, а Георг до цього вже багато працював, в нього освіта психотерапевта, він працював в подібних проєктах і, звичайно, він знав, що терапевтичний ефект має бути.
It was my first experience, but Georg had a number of projects like that, and as a psychotherapist, he knew that that element would be present there as well.
Але в чому особливість, що тут, ну, як і діти, так і дорослі, з якими ми робимо вистави, вони відчувають себе не пацієнтами, а вони відчувають себе творцями вистави. І це дуже важливо.
What is very important with children who participate in this play, they don't consider themselves as patients, they consider themselves as creative artists, and that's very important.
Ми стараємося відкрити їм очі, так, щоб вони самі почали аналізувати, що з ними відбувається. Просто показуємо інший світ, да, ми з ними багато розмовляємо.
We didn't engage in any sort of propaganda, and we did not try to explain the world for those children, but we tried to open their eyes so they could read reality for their own.
Не нав'язуємо їм свою правду, бо насправді вона у кожного своя, напевно.
We didn't impose any truth on them because everyone should have their own truth.
Але тут таке складне питання, чесно кажучи, таке, не знаю, як його правильно назвати. І я бачу, що ці діти змінилися, що вони розуміють нас, наприклад, 2 роки назад вони нас не розуміли. А зараз ми розмовляємо однією мовою про якісь речі. Ми можемо в чомусь не погоджуватись. В когось там тато воює на боці ДНР досі, і в нього якісь є питання до української влади і таке інше. Але ми можемо про це вільно говорити, в нас є діалог. Де та правда, ми її шукаємо, ми всі в пошуку.
Although it's a difficult question, but from experience I can say that initially children didn't understand us. Now we speak in the same language, even though that some of their parents might be fighting on the DNR, Donetsk People's Republic side. But now we at least could communicate and understand each other.
І ще я помітила, що чим більше діти подібні перебували в такому стані, війни, там ми різні маємо для порівняння там досвід, тим більше вони чогось зрозуміли, дійсно, схожого на правду.
The more children experience, the more they could understand what the truth is.
It's an excellent question. I mean, the cliche answer is truth is the first casualty of war. So I think a lot of the concern around propaganda with this particular conflict also needs to be understood in relation to the fact that there are always multiple perspectives, and conflicts always increase misunderstandings, they can increase xenophobias, they can increase stereotyping. The one thing I tried to achieve this trip for the charity, a report that is yet to be published, is on attitudes and the issue of reconciliation, maybe not right now, but whenever the front line is actually removed. One local activist described it to me as, will it be like when the Berlin Wall came down, we have a reunification of people who've been physically separate for a number of 2.5 years now, maybe who knows how long it will be when they actually come back together. And whether the impact of negative propaganda or propaganda on both sides shapes opinion so that people think in a very different way about each other and themselves. So I think the issue of multiple truths and multiple interpretation of why what is happening will be a reality for Ukraine, for the Donbass in particular, whenever that sort of moment of ease of travel or reunification, if you like, if I can use that dramatic term, whenever that does happen, when it comes to pass. In terms of whether people have a sort of an understanding of what's happening to them, I think one of the other interesting things is to try to understand where people are displacing blame, because blame is sent in all sorts of different directions. But I think coming back to the issue of art and theatre, I mean, the principal experience of conflict for most of the people in the region is an emotional one. It's not principally a political one, it's principally an emotional one. And the propaganda exploits the emotions that people are feeling. But there are some basic human emotions around suffering, which I think, for example, some of the vignettes in this film capture very well. that I think could be used as a way of trying to convey the impact of all of what's happening, maybe without pushing blame, but more focusing on the actual problems that have been caused, especially with regards to keeping Ukraine together in the medium term into the future as well. So all those things need to be dealt with. You can't, I think, excuse the fact that there will be people who have different interpretations of what's happened to them. That's inevitable, I think, after nearly 3 years of this.
Все, що має смакість, все, що не має такої відкритої агресивної пропаганди.
Anything which is tasteful and doesn't contain an aggressive propaganda will work.
Але з дуже сучасним мистецтвом туди теж не варто їхати.
But postmodern art probably wouldn't be accepted very well.
Бо тому що ми коли ми ці вистави веземо кудись, ми можемо собі дозволити там щось таке ускладнювати. А коли ми на місці робимо, показуємо місцевому населенню, ми завжди в це враховуємо, що
Воно ще не сприймається.
Ні, оце конкретно сприймається скрізь. Це діти розповідають свої історії, це сприймається скрізь дуже легко.
Children's stories are well received everywhere. Children's stories are received very well everywhere, so this film was well accepted.
Ну просто іноді ми розуміємо, що якісь кліше використовувати, нібито смак нам не дозволяє, так? Якби. А потім ми собі, от ми зараз робили проєкт «Впасні» з військовими і дітьми, але ми весь час собі говорили, так, що вони будуть грати на фортепіано, це військова дівчинка, ну якось це так, ну дуже це мі-мі-мі, якось, ну що, смак не дозволяє. Але ми тут же розуміємо, що ми це показуватимемо в Попасні людям, які, ну, взагалі театр ніколи не бачили. І ми залишали такі речі.
So sometimes our sense of taste wouldn't allow us to employ certain cliché or stereotypes. But when we were filming in Popasna, town of Popasna, we left a scene of soldiers playing piano and children, even though it sounds stereotypical, but that was appropriate for that context.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, what I think would be interesting would be to maybe revisit this in about 7 years' time, speak to the same students, see how their lives have changed, see how their lives have changed, their opinions, their thoughts about the war, etc.
Я не знаю. Я сподіваюся, що це залишиться в минулому, в них назавжди, що цей травматичний досвід вони перетворять просто в досвід, який зможуть використовувати в корисних якихось цілях в своєму житті, щоб не повторювати, наприклад, подібне.
I hope that they will put this experience behind and wouldn't have to relive it again.
Сказати, що в Англії зробили цю програму, де вони взяли молодих дітей, які мали 7 років, вони зробили інтерв'ю з тими дітьми, і тоді вони вернулися за 7 років, знову ці самі питання дали і дали інші відповіді. Тоді, наприклад, цей хлопець що сказав, що він хоче в космос іти. Було б дуже було цікаво бачити, чи
Так, ну насправді так, це дійсно цікаво. Зібрати потім всіх цих дітей і поговорити про те, що було.
It would be interesting to gather these children together and have this group discussion with them. I agree with that.
Maybe I would like to add a little bit more and to talk about another project that you are involved in, about Ukrainian military personnel and the children in the conflict zone. You were you just started talking about it just a little bit. Could you please elaborate? Because from what I heard about it, it's really important in the process of reconciliation.
Ну так як ми займаємося переселенцями багато, то ми в одну з поїздок туди на схід зрозуміли, що якщо переселенці зі Сходу в Києві існують, це звичайні люди, які потерпіли від війни, то там на Сході переселенцями являються військові, які там живуть подовгу, і вони теж знаходяться не вдома.
We started to work with internally displaced people, and we realized that there are two types of IDPs. So, for instance, we have IDPs in Kyiv who are civilians who fled from the eastern Ukraine. But when you look at eastern Ukraine as such, you can see that the military personnel who is stationed in eastern Ukraine, they are internally displaced in a sense as well.
І було досить неприємне спостереження от в тій же Миколаївці, що між місцевим населенням і українськими військовими дуже напружені погані стосунки в місті. Тобто їх нема в принципі.
It was quite unpleasant to observe that the relationship between residents of Mykolaiivka town and Ukrainian army personnel was quite tense, and there was no real engagement between them.
Ми тоді створили першу ініціативу, коли привели в школу офіцерів українських, познайомили їх з дітьми, у них була досить жорстка розмова між собою.
So our first initiative was to introduce them to each other, and we brought some Ukrainian army commanders to this school and introduced them to children, and they had quite a tough discussion.
I would like to thank again Europe House for hosting us today, and also to thank our volunteers Anna Morgan and our photographer Zoriana Klimenko who worked with us today. And also please visit our website, Ukrainian Institute website, ukrainianinstitute.org.uk for our future events. Thank you very much for coming.